Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
Okay, it's Gridiron Grinder time. How's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's good, man. Tonight is episode 26 of Gridiron Grinder. I'm Ryan. With me is my buddy James. We're going to be providing our weekly NFL team power rankings and game picks. Let's just talk about these games from this past week, James. I always like talking about the Lions, but, what a freaking beatdown, man.
Yeah, I didn't. We talked a little bit about it last week. I didn't watch much of the game. I was going to, and then I just saw it was like 600 to nothing, and I was like, screw this. I'm just gonna drive.
It was embarrassing. And yeah, the thing that came out after we did our show last week that I thought was interesting was basically a lot of people were giving the Bucks shit for running up the score like that. And I don't know, dude. I mean, it's one of these things. We had four of our coaches out with COVID. Stafford got hurt like basically right away, and so you had Chase Daniel pretty much the whole time. And I guess like people were calling him out for like Gronk and some of these guys playing until late in the game. I mean Brady. I don't think he even played in the second half. He lit us up in the first half, and then they rested him. But
Yeah.
to me, it's like, hey, it's the NFL, man. Like you got to be good enough to not get too fucking embarrassed. Like come on. So we deserved it. It is what it is. Good for them. They fucking killed us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is what it is. They're still gonna lose this week, but that's okay.
Tampa Bay, you think?
Yeah,
Or the Lions? I mean, the Lions
both.
obviously, but both you think?
Lions,
Okay.
obviously, both. I think. Like,
Ooh.
like I just Tampa Bay is one of those teams where they play so inconsistently. They one week
Yeah.
they have a solid week, and the next week they play like shit. So I don't like how that team's playing at all.
Yeah, I think that with how streaky they've been, they needed that game against the Lions, man, because that's like their way of saying, okay, we kicked somebody's ass. Let's put all that bad shit behind us. Now we're good to go and make our run into the playoffs. Hopefully that was kind of like their get right and fix it sort of game. But yeah, they have been super streaky all year.
Yeah.
All right. Any other games you want to talk about before we move on to name that stadium?
That Raiders game last week, that was crazy.
Oh, and didn't we talk about it earlier in the year that, it was risky them going with that kicker after all the kicker problems they had last year? And the guy actually was good, like all season long. And then here we go, at the end of the year, that extra point fucking killed him, man.
Yeah, that extra point killed them, and then like Gruden, like I mean, on third down, you might as well go for the touchdown instead of taking the knee. Like
Yeah.
it's like who cares? You don't score. If you score, who cares? You were just going to take a knee anyways, and
Yeah.
what's an extra 20 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever? Or even Derek Carr, like he needs to wait. If you're going to take the knee, wait till somebody's about to tackle you before you take the damn knee to
Yeah.
waste more time.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. I think, and I know they talked about like the Gurley play early in the year where, it looked like he was like at the last second trying to stop, but then he ended up going into the end zone. And then,
Yeah.
Stafford came back and scored, and the Lions actually won that game. I don't know. I just thought this was a different circumstance. It's like, hey, get the points while you can, and then force them to go down and score. Like, I get it, your defense has been bad, but it's not like those teams were scoring fucking 40 points each or something. Like it came down to the end. It was what 26-25 or something. So it's like
Yeah. I think one of the things Gruden was looking at with it was the Kansas City game where they scored the touchdown and gave Mahomes like a minute or something.
well,
And
yeah, but that's
but you're
Mahomes, man.
right. It's Mahomes exactly. It's not Fitz. It's
Yeah,
just
And it burned him. It burned him either way, so it didn't matter. But yeah, man. And hey, now it's a rough year for them. They got to win just to get to 500.
Yeah, and then on that throw by Fitz, that's crazy how bad he was face mask as he was throwing and was still able to get it mostly accurately down the field.
Oh yeah, that guy was wide freaking open, dude. Like, how does
Yeah.
that happen? You got the game on the line and you got like broken coverage like that. Like, oh
Well, no,
jeez.
like no, what I heard when I was hearing the analysis earlier in the game, Fitz did the opposite where they had the guy running down the middle and they baited him to go to the outside, like he was looking right at the outside guy, like he was going to throw at the guy outside, and
Okay.
then when they were running down that play, like he was looking right at the guy down the middle that had burned him earlier in the game, and they kind of focused on him and then just went to the guy on the outside knowing he'd be there.
Also, he baited him.
Yeah, he baited him to change the coverage, which is what got him open. Which is, I mean, it's crazy to think how Fitz is doing stuff like that, and people are still signing him. I guess I heard earlier today that like he wanted to retire, but he's getting like 10 million to be a backup. He's like, why would
Oh
I
yeah.
not?
Just keep it
Why would,
going. Yeah.
he's like an extra coach in there.
Yeah, and I've always liked him. I mean, the dude came out of Harvard, so he's fucking smart.
Yeah,
And like pretty much everywhere he's been, he's had productive streaks. And then yeah, at some point things kind of break down on him, and that's when that's when they bench him and then let him go, and he goes to another team and he bounces around. But I mean, the dude has had a pretty good career, man, for one of these guys that like no team ever really wants to commit to. And you think in
yeah.
today's day and age where, people are just scrambling to find quarterbacks, I don't know, man. I would have thought somebody would have hung on to him and been like, yeah, no, we're gonna try it for more than a year at a time here.
Yeah, you would think, but I mean, also though, like the teams he's been on have been pretty shitty teams at a lot
That's
of time.
true. Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I mean, he
going all
was
the way
with
back to Buffalo. They've all been
yeah,
bad. Yeah.
Buffalo, the Jets. I mean, couple when he was first there in Miami. I mean, Miami's turning it around, obviously, but I mean,
Yeah,
when he started.
Tampa Bay was rough when he was there. Yep.
Oh, I forgot he was with Tampa.
Yeah, yeah. That was when they benched Jameis for a couple games, and Fitz
Yeah,
just like tore it up, man.
no, Jameis was suspended. That's right. I
There you
remember.
go. Yeah,
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 Jameis was suspended for some incident. He was like the first 4 games he was suspended, and Fitz was tearing it up.
yep.
And then Jameis came back, and I think they started Fitz one more game, and then gave it over to Jameis.
Yeah, it was like as soon as he had like a little bit of a falter, they're like, yeah, okay, Jameis, you're in. It's like, what the hell, man? Just let the guy run. Let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
exactly.
All right, well, let's move it on. Let's get to name that stadium. So basically, this is the part of the show where, as our viewers can see, James, you are out and about traveling the world here. Every week, you put a new stadium in your background, and this is a stadium for one of the home teams that's playing this week. And basically, we're asking our viewers if they think they know that stadium. Go ahead, take a shot at guessing it. Throw it in the comments section. If you're the first person to get the right answer, we'll give you a special shout out in next week's show. For this past week, we had a winner, Tori Pack. Congratulations, you got it right. James was in fact at Lambeau last week, home of the Green Bay Packers. Thanks for playing. And by the way, Tori is our first two-time winner, so this is an extra special shout out. And we did have one other taker for last week, but he didn't get it right. And so, nonetheless, we appreciate that person for playing as well. And, hey, take another shot this week. See what you think. So, James, what was your inspiration for going with Lambeau?
Well, I thought it was when I decided it was before I looked at the weather report. I thought it was going to be the most compelling game of the week, and I mean, then I read the weather report and I was like, oh shit, like this game is going to be terrible.
Well, and let's talk about that game for a minute because before, Sunday when we did our show, I had said that I thought if there was weather as a factor, it would benefit Tennessee. And because I just assumed, Green Bay's weakness on defense is the run game. And Tennessee is just dominant at running the ball with Derrick Henry. And so I just kind of thought, hey, logically that makes sense. But it was like the exact opposite in reality. They were talking in the game about how they have like heated coils under the turf. And basically the Packers know that even though there's snow on the ground, you can still make cuts. And it was like obvious. Like Tennessee was playing really timid in that game. Like they were afraid of slipping and sliding all over the place. And Green Bay was just like cutting and zigging and zagging and just burning them, man.
Yeah, the best description I heard of it, it was like Green Bay was playing like they were playing in 80-degree weather.
Yeah.
And Tennessee was playing like they were playing in negative 50-degree weather.
Yeah, it was weird. You would have thought that at some point throughout the game, Tennessee would have figured that out. Oh, yeah, no, we can make cuts on this shit. And they just didn't, like, the whole time, man. It was bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, if you're a warmer weather team, or you have, apparently Tennessee Stadium isn't the same way, because it snows still in Tennessee. Not that bad, but...
Yeah.
So they should have the same setup. I mean, why wouldn't you? I know Denver does. They have the heated. It's not coils, but they have it's like hot water pipes or something that heat from underneath the field.
Oh,
and
nice.
Denver also.
Yeah. Hey, it's just money, man. Fix your fucking stadium if you don't have that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the snow games. I like it. Where it is like a little bit nasty, where basically you have to kind of just ground and pound it because it's just hard to get a lot of movement. But it definitely was not that way at all at Lambeau. It wasn't like they got fucking 6 inches of snow or something. It was like a solid dusting, and the Packers were all over it. They're like, yeah, no big deal, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, that's enough of that. That was Name That Stadium. So just once again, anybody watching, if you think you know what stadium James has in the background tonight, hit us up in the comments section. Let us know what you think. If you're the first person to get it right, we'll hit you up next week in the show, give you a special shout out. All right, so moving on here, James, let's switch over to our power rankings. And why don't you start off by giving me 1 through 5 on your board, man?
So I have Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City is it's their year again. It's incredibly impressive coming off the Super Bowl with everyone gunning for them.
Mm-hmm.
They so far only have lost one game, and probably in this year with a better definitely in this year with a better record, but possibly only have lost one game for the entire season after winning the Super Bowl. And that offense is ridiculously talented.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, their defense is sufficient. I mean, their defense only has to be mediocre really with that offense. Now the offense the last couple weeks has been struggling. I think they might be just bored. It's like, okay, regular season. It's regular season. What are you going to do to make this interesting? And they'll come look last year. Once the playoffs hit, they turned it around, and they were their defense was suspect all year, and then in the playoffs their defense was freaking ridiculous.
That's true.
Number 2, I have Buffalo. They moved up one spot. With Buffalo, I've been high on them all year, and I kind of diminished a little bit with some of the losses they have. But Josh Allen is a great quarterback. I think there's a lot of questions with him, but he's just playing phenomenal as of late. And to have 70-some% completion percentage this year is amazing. I don't know what he did in the offseason to turn everything around, but whatever he did, it worked.
Oh yeah, man.
And the defense is playing solid. I mean, they have their times where mostly when I've seen the defense struggle, it's been because certain players have been out.
Gotcha.
And as long as those players can stay healthy, this team can probably beat anybody in the league, and that's including Kansas City.
Hey, they could be squaring off at some point here.
Yeah. couple weeks, like I don't know, what's that? The third weekend in January.
Yeah, pencil it in.
Yeah, which was my prediction at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
Like,
I didn't, I thought Buffalo would be good, but I had no idea Josh Allen was going to take this kind of a step up. And so I had basically discounted them off of that, thinking, no way is he going to be like, this fucking badass quarterback. They're going to be good, but they're not going to be like lighting people up. And yeah, they proved me wrong big time, man. They just been spanking people. And they did have that one kind of part of the season where it kind of lulled for a couple weeks. But like other than that, man, it's been pretty badass the whole year. And their defense did have a very slow start, but in recent weeks, the defense has definitely gotten their shit together. And it could
yeah,
be because of the injuries, like you're saying.
yeah. And then at three, I have Green Bay. I mean, we've talked about it. It's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is basically on a fuck you tour this year.
Yeah.
Draft my replacement. I'll fucking show you how it goes. And Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be the MVP this year. I say probably because there's that love, ridiculous love for Patrick Mahomes and whatever he does make. Well, not ridiculous love. That's not the right word, but it's just like if you sit down and you compare the two seasons, Aaron Rodgers is having a lot better season than Mahomes. Rodgers, I think the set was like it's 44-4 on the touchdowns versus 35 touchdowns interception, 44-4 versus 35-7 or something like that.
Yeah. How many of those came against Miami for
Yeah,
Mahomes?
right. But still, like Rodgers is just having
It's
that year.
it's it's badass. Yeah, he's lighting it up.
And it's like to me on the year, it's like Rodgers, then Allen, then Mahomes in the rankings for MVP. But I mean, Green Bay, it's Green Bay. And I look back at my gambling account. Actually, right after the Super Bowl last year, I put a little bet on Green Bay to win the Super Bowl this year.
Mm.
And I forgot about it until I was looking through. And I was like, oh shit, I still have that one open. And so
Keeping your
we'll
fingers
see.
crossed for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the playoffs, Green Bay, they're probably going to be the one seed in the NFC. And like we saw last week, it's hard to play up there in weather.
Yeah.
Not impossible because teams have beaten Green Bay. Like the Giants a number of years ago with Tom Coughlin was he had like his entire face
Oh
was
yeah.
red, which that was a great game too. But I mean, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. At number four, I have Tennessee, and even though they got beat down by the Packers, they moved up a spot this year. Them moving Tennessee moving up a spot is because I see last week as an anomaly for the team.
Okay.
I think as you said, they were playing timid. They were afraid of sliding out, so they weren't cutting, and they weren't playing their game last week. They tried to adapt their game to the weather instead of just playing their game with the weather going on. And then at five, I have Baltimore. They moved up a spot, and I just noticed like four of our top five are like the exact same, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
We're coming
Um,
into alignment.
yeah, but even though I have Baltimore at five, I still don't think this team's going to make the playoffs.
I mean, they got to win, right?
Yeah,
So
no, like there's various things they have to win or Indianapolis has to lose. I think is their path to the playoffs.
yeah,
But
I think that in the scenarios, it's in their favor that you
yeah,
know. But then again, Cincinnati, they've beaten a few people lately, so it's not like it's a gimme. It just on paper looks a little bit easier in terms of their path.
yeah, and with Baltimore, I think the team's starting to come around and starting to play. They're starting to play like they did all year last year, and aside from the playoff game, and their losses really aren't like the majority of their losses. Like they lost two to Pittsburgh. They lost. Who else they lose to? Did they lose to Buffalo?
Oh, I'd have to
No,
look it
they
up.
lost to Kansas City. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
three of their losses. I forget who their other two losses are too, but I mean, outside of they lost those three. They lost to New England, and so I forget the other one.
Oh, yeah, the
But they
rain
haven't had
game. Yep.
yeah, they haven't had a really bad loss. Like New England maybe, but that was in monsoon
There was a
weather.
lot of weather there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that I kind of give them a pass for that loss. But even though I think this team is a top 10 team in the league, I still don't think they're making the playoffs.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm interested to see, man. I'm interested to see. And, so kicking it over to my side here, yeah, we have four out of our top five are the same. And so I've got Kansas City at one. People, they've been talking, oh my gosh, like, did they show, a crack in their armor with Atlanta, almost taking that game to overtime and whatever. No, whatever, dude. I mean, they got the win, and yeah, they're clearly the top team in the league, and so I kept them at one, and then I've got Buffalo at two, which is where I had them last week, and I mean, hey, they spanked the Patriots, and I would have thought that Belichick could have come up with some kind of a way to at least slow them down, but I think that this just goes to show you that the Bills are primed for the playoffs. And then at three, I got Green Bay, same spot as last week. It was a solid win over Tennessee. The weather was kind of crazy. We talked about it, I think, pretty well at this point. I still do like Tennessee, but man, that was a weird loss for them. I didn't like seeing that at all. At four, I've got the Saints. And this was one of these games where it was sort of strange because Kamara's 6 TD, record-tying performance, it basically overshadowed Drew Brees playing like shit and their defense playing like shit. But I still have them this high because, despite some of these gaps in their game, I mean, man, they just keep finding ways to win. And so, they've got a week to figure it out before the playoffs start. I did just hear earlier today that Kamara's out this week with COVID. And we'll see. I mean, it's week 17. Are they going to go all out? Or are they going to, I think kind of what I heard, and this is just like a lot of speculation, is that Breeze wants to play just to kind of stay warm, but he's probably not going to play this whole game. But I don't know what the playoff scenarios are for them. If they're kind of just solidly in, but they're not going to get the bye, then you don't have to go crazy.
Yeah,
And
the highest they can get is the 2 seed. They don't have in the situation in what I've seen. If it's a three-way tie with Seattle, New Orleans, and Green Bay, Seattle gets the bye. Otherwise, Green Bay gets the bye.
yeah, so I can't see Breeze playing the full game. But he is still coming back from injury, and so maybe he wants to get some reps, just kind of keeping it safe. We'll see what happens. And then at five, I've got the Ravens, and so I kind of went back and forth with these guys, and it's tough because like when I compare them to Pittsburgh, I try to look at Pittsburgh with like the full body of work, and hey, they started 11-0 and all this stuff, but when I'm looking at the two teams today. I agree with what you're saying. Baltimore, they look strong in these recent weeks, and it's pretty crazy that like they're kind of just sitting on the outside looking in on the playoffs right now. They got to win to get in, but I think if they do, they're the more dangerous team between them and Pittsburgh, and so I got them higher on my board for now. Which I mean, hey, I'm a huge Pittsburgh fan. It kind of killed me to do it, but that's just how I feel about these two teams right now.
Yeah.
All right, man. Back your way. Give me 6 through 10.
All right, at six, I have Indy. They dropped 4 spots with it. If you look at the game last week with Pittsburgh, in the second half they went away from what was working in the first half. They weren't aggressive on defense. They were just sitting back and they let Pittsburgh come to them. Plus I also heard that Pittsburgh in the second half they pulled plays that they hadn't even practiced out because they thought they would work.
Huh.
It's like nothing was working in the first half, and in the second half they were just there's like, okay, let's do these plays that we put in, but we haven't been practicing because we were going to possibly use them down the line, and let's use these, and they all work. And
Interesting.
Indy stopped being aggressive in the second half. I probably would have dropped them below my number 17 New Orleans, who I brought up 2 spots, but the Kamara COVID thing is what tempered my excitement about New Orleans.
Yeah.
Not only is Kamara out for this week, according to the NFL protocol, he has to self-isolate for 10 days, so he's probably not going to be able to play in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh shit! I didn't think about that. Yeah, that could really that could be a factor for the Saints, man.
Yeah, so that's concerning. Murray, yeah, is a solid change of pace guy, but I don't know if
He's not Kamara.
he's not Kamara,
Yeah.
not nowhere close, and I don't know if he can really carry the load for them. But yeah, what I was hearing today was his Kamara's status is in doubt for the playoff game.
Damn. See, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just kind of thinking, well, for Week 17's purposes, what the fuck does it matter? They're not like
Yeah,
there's not anything really on the line for them. So but shit, that's huge, man.
exactly. And at number 8, I have Miami. They dropped down 1 spot, and even though they won, they dropped down 1 spot. And because I thought it's more or less the reason why I dropped Miami came down to the fact that Fitz is not available for them this week,
Yeah.
and he's on the COVID list too, and I think that's a huge blow to the team. I think Fitz coming off the bench, as I've heard him referred to as the closer quarterback.
Yeah.
That guy
Well,
that
even
comes off
even
the
if
bench.
it's even if it's just the threat for Tua, where it's like, hey, you got to play well, or we'll sit your
Right.
ass down.
Plus,
Without that being there, that kind of changes things mentally for him.
Plus, if you watch the games, whenever they cut to Tua on the sideline, he's always going over plays with Fitz. He's always talking about what's going on in the field with Fitz. He
Yeah.
doesn't. Like I said, he's like that extra coach.
Yeah, and Fitz
That
can't even be at the game.
exactly. So that kind of tempered. Plus, I thought they should have beat down the Raiders. I
Yeah.
didn't think they should be. Didn't think it was going to be as close as it was with the Raiders. So that kind of worried me a little bit. At number 9, I have Tampa Bay. They went up 2 spots, and then as soon as I sent you my rankings, I was hearing all the players out on defense on the COVID list.
Yeah.
They're no tackle. I can't remember the names, but it was like no tackle. It was Shaq Barrett, and it was another linebacker. So basically, like the entire center of that defense is out this week. And I mean, yeah, they beat down the Lions last week. I mean, the Rochester Redskins probably could beat down the Lions.
Oh boy.
You know,
Are they
you
still
know,
called that, James? After
No,
Washington
probably not.
changed the Rochester football team.
Yeah, the Rochester football team, the Pee Wee football team in Rochester, Michigan, probably could beat
Yeah.
the Lions this year.
I mean, that game was embarrassing. I
Yeah,
hear what you're saying. Yeah.
it was embarrassing. It was the Lions were disinterested in it. Talking about the Lions, I'm hoping like hell that either Stafford's played his last game for the Lions or is playing his last game for the Lions this week.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, and just talking about that for a second, because I thought about that earlier. I don't know if I made notes for it, but my whole thought on that is that if you're the Lions, don't even think about playing Stafford, because if there's any chance at all that you're going to trade him in the offseason, why risk him getting hurt?
Yeah.
You're not playing for shit. Like, just don't take that chance. But I thought I heard something that Stafford wants to play, and hey, that's great, man. But if we can trade you for something, I'm not going to take that chance. If he gets
Yeah.
hurt, that whole thing's off the table.
Exactly. Stafford should be put in bubble wrap, put in the locker room, not even dressed for the game.
Yeah,
I mean, hell, play. Who's the guy? Blow.
Blau.
Or
Yeah,
Blau.
David Blau. Yeah.
David Blau. David blows.
Hey, he's still a young guy, year 2. He
Yeah.
actually came out last year in his first game that he played. He did all right, but after that, yeah, everything just kind of, yep, it showed. He was a rookie. So,
Yeah. Play him, lose the game. I think I was looking at it. If they win, like if they win, their draft pick will be like number like 13 or 14, and if they lose, it'll be like 5 or 6.
oh yeah, it's a big swing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like the Jets,
Yeah.
man. Why did you win? Like, don't do it.
Exactly. At like 5 or 6, you're gonna have your option of Fields or Fields might be there because I don't think the Jets are gonna draft Fields at 2, or Trey Lance, who I've been talking about, might be there, and you can get your quarterback.
Yeah,
And if you don't get one of those two quarterbacks, do not draft Wilson. I think his name is from
the
BYU. Do not
BYU
draft.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah, do not draft him. He's not going to translate well to the NFL, and just trade your pick and get more assets.
gotcha.
But
We need a real GM to do that.
yeah, it's the Lions. They'll pick Charlie Morton at number 5. I don't know.
Just let's just
So
get a real GM, and then maybe I'll have a little bit of faith that they're going to get it right. But yeah, no, I mean, if they do another one of these moves where they like promote a guy up into that spot, I'm gonna be just fucking fuming, man, because we struck out the last 3 GMs. It doesn't work that way. It's a lot harder to just promote a guy and have him fucking hit the fucking nail on the head, man. You gotta, I don't know.
yeah,
I'm rambling.
yeah, that's the Lions, and they
Yeah.
frustrate the shit out of us every year.
All right, so
Number
I think
10.
yeah, I was gonna say I think you had one more, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
you still got to
at
do
number
10.
10, I have the Seahawks. I jumped them up 3 spots. Look, I thought their defense was playing like shit, and their defense has turned it around. Right?
Hmm.
Last like 3 games, they've turned it around, and they haven't put it all on Russell Wilson. And I got to respect that. They won their division. I had the Rams as all year almost all year in the top 10. So I got to respect. They beat the Rams. They won the division. Could get the number 1 seed in the NFC. I don't think they're better than any of the NFC teams I have ahead of them, but I got to respect them.
Nice, nice. And I think Jamal Adams was just saying stuff that they've got the best defense in football now. So, that's just one man's opinion, but it goes to show that they feel a lot more confident with the group
Yeah,
of guys they got now than they did earlier in the year.
exactly.
All right, so kicking it back my way, at 6, I got Tampa Bay. I moved them up 2 spots. And, hey, them going up 2 spots really had not as much to do about them beating the Lions as much as I just kind of thought they needed a statement win to get some swagger back. The Lions ended up being that poor frickin' schmuck of a team that they got to roll over. But more importantly, they're going to be getting Ronald Jones back. And this team has looked completely different when he's in the lineup. They actually have a solid running game with him. And the big thing is, like you're saying, if they got some guys on COVID, hopefully they can get them back in time for the playoffs. Week 17 doesn't really mean much for these guys. It's all about, kind of keeping some of that rhythm and keeping that confidence up, and then making your run once playoff time comes.
Well, see, but that's the thing is the guys that are going on COVID. I think one of them, the nose tackle, was a positive test, and the other 2 were
So
close
it's the same as
contact.
the Kamara thing. They
So
might not play.
the nose tackle might not be available for the playoff game because of the
Yeah.
10-day quarantine.
Yeah, and their defense, man, you're not talking about Sue, are you?
No, it wasn't Sue. It was
Okay. I know their other defensive tackle went out earlier in the year, and then they brought in a guy. I don't remember who the heck it was, but yeah. Either way, their defense they need all the help they can get, man, because they've had a lot of talent, and it's just not always shown up. But some games they've just fucking shut people down too. So you kind of just don't know what you're getting with this team.
it was Devin White, Shaq Barrett, and
Oh,
McClendon.
yeah, okay, yeah. Steve McClendon, I think he's the guy they traded for. Devin White's their linebacker that they drafted last year. That guy's been solid. Yeah, and then you said Shaq Barrett's the other one.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean those are all those are all impact players for that defense, man. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
hey, well,
So
yeah,
so Shaq Barrett's Shaq Barrett was a close contact. And I think it was McClendon tested positive, and Devin White was a close contact.
okay,
So those two, White and Barrett, will probably be available for the playoffs. But the others,
yeah,
well,
McClendon will be out.
yeah.
Okay, well, Sue's just gonna have to cover two spots, man. All right, so then at 7, I got Pittsburgh. I moved Pittsburgh up 4 spots. You know, I mean, hey, like I was making these comments last week about maybe they should bench some guys against Indy and then go all in on the Cleveland game. So much for that. I mean, they powered through and it paid off. Like you're saying, it was a patchy kind of a game. They were down. They came back at the end. Really, it just boils down to they got to keep it going now, which it looks like this is the week they're going to rest some guys, and hopefully they get their shit straight for the playoffs.
I would just like to point
Yeah,
out, because last week I wasn't right about many things, but I was right about how to play it, where they just go all out against Indy, try to win the division this week, and then rest the guys, which is what they did, and it worked well for them. That's
yeah,
about the
no,
only thing I was right about last week. We'll get to that when we get to the pick section, but
oh yeah, yeah, no, I hear you, and I think honestly, I think that that's like a more kind of like commonly accepted way of going about doing it. My only thinking was that maybe you do something different because you want them to play in week 17 just so that they're basically firing on all cylinders in the playoffs, because
oh,
there have been times in the past where teams rest their guys in week 17 and then it's like they had like immediate rust in their first playoff game, and it's like, wow, like 1 week of rest and you're like forgetting how to do this shit. Like, come on.
well, I think it's stupid to all the guys that are benching this week. Like, even though I said what I said last week, and I was right in how they did it, and it worked out for them, I think they're stupid resting all the guys this week, because if you look at it, in the last like 4 weeks, they played 1 quarter of good football. You got to keep
Yeah.
you got to keep the momentum going. You're
Yep.
killing the momentum right after it started,
Yeah, keep
and
them sharp, man. Keep them working. Yeah.
yeah, play them for a quarter or two. See if what was going on at the fourth quarter last week. See if it continues. If it's not, then play them for the second half. But don't just trust that you turned everything around with 1 quarter of football.
No, I agree. And I like that strategy. Start them, and if they're kicking ass, you can rest them in the second half. But yeah, I get it. There's some risk, and they're doing it different. But yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, so then at 8, I got Indianapolis. I dropped them down 4 spots. I really like Indy this year. They're a complete team, which I think honestly is more than we can say about Pittsburgh at this point in the season. Pittsburgh basically abandoned their running game, and they got injuries on defense. Indy, they're pretty much good all around, man. And the only reason I've got them behind Pittsburgh on my board, Pitt obviously just beat them, but then also, Rivers can single-handedly bring down that football team, which he just did sort of, had a turnover at the worst possible time in that Pittsburgh game. But I think the playoff pressure makes me nervous. Are we going to start seeing more of the double agent Phillip Rivers? Because, he's not like some fucking Tom Brady seasoned guy that just rises to the occasion. So
Yeah.
and then at 9, I got Tennessee. I dropped them down 3 spots. I just didn't like the way they lost to Green Bay. Derrick Henry, they held him under 100 yards. Tannehill had 2 picks. The Tennessee defense looked horrible. There was just a lot in that game that just, maybe you're saying, hey, you got to chalk it up to the weather and that they're still going to be okay. I hope so. Yeah, I like Tennessee. I just thought, man, that was an ugly loss. And then at 10, I got Seattle. I had them at 10 last week. I didn't get to watch this game, but what I read about it afterwards basically said that it was more about the Rams losing this game than it was about the Seahawks winning that game. But I agree with you that their defense has been playing better. And whether the Rams were shooting them in the foot or shooting themselves in the foot or what, Seattle definitely they've got a lot of things working in their favor right now. And so if the defense keeps playing strong, that's going to be amazing for them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
All right, man. Kicking it back to you, 11 through 15.
All right, at 11, I have Pittsburgh. They got a 4-spot bump after beating Indy. We've said everything we can about Pittsburgh the last couple of weeks. They play so inconsistently. They don't know how to run the ball. They don't even try to run the ball. And I mean, I think the Indy game, they won that game, but I'm hard pressed to see them winning this week and even in the playoffs, because the way the team plays, they're benching all their players are sitting out this week, so they have hoping that one or quarter and a half of football against Indy, where they were moving the ball effectively, they were playing great, is going to propel them for the playoffs, and that concerns me. At 12, I have Cleveland. I'm very disappointed in this team in Cleveland last week.
Yeah.
Look, you have all your wide receivers out, and so you're playing wide receivers. Like, I think the longest one was Marvin Hall, who had been on the team for like 2 or 3 weeks, and you in the first half you run 24 passing plays and 4 rushing plays.
Yeah, it was poor decisions.
What the fuck kind of game plan is that? You have two of the best running backs in football.
Exactly.
Just turn around, hand the ball to them, beat the shit out of the Jets. You're playing the Jets. God damn it, don't try to throw the ball when you don't have receivers.
Yeah, and let's be real. Just fucking line Kareem Hunt out at wide receiver. He's that good of a pass-catching running back. And so you got a wide receiver. You got a couple of tight ends. And then you got Chubb in the backfield. Like, that should have been plenty to just destroy the Jets. And, yeah, I agree. They fucked that game plan up big time, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, that... Like I said a couple weeks ago, I'm starting to talk good about this Cleveland team. Watch it. This is going to bite me in the ass.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they played like shit against the Jets.
And this is one of these situations, because it's Cleveland, I can't help but wonder, if they fuck up and they miss the playoffs, is this going to be a self-destructing thing for them going into next year? Or can they actually persevere and build off of the improvement that they had this year? Because I could just see it. Like, I think there's an expectation that they're getting in the playoffs, and now all of a sudden that's kind of in doubt. And I don't know, man. I like Cleveland. I'm hoping they get in, but it's no guarantee at this point, man.
Yeah. If you look at it, my 13 teams, the Rams, both Cleveland and the Rams, 2-3 weeks ago, they had all but locked their playoff spot.
Yeah.
Now they're hard pressed. Like, they may not make the playoffs.
Yeah, they're fumbling it away.
Yeah. And speaking of the Rams, I dropped them 3 spots to 13. What happened with the Rams against Seattle is, if you look at it, Goff made a bad pass. He made a bad pass towards the end of the first half, and then in the second half they had the 4 plays in the red zone where they didn't throw the ball. It's like McVay's confidence in Goff is
it's going away, man. Yeah.
And I'm reading a lot of good things about this Warford or whatever his name is, that's playing quarterback, and that's going to play for him this week. But I think with the Rams, they're locked into Goff, and it's a huge dead cap hit if they get rid of him. And I don't think he's the answer. He's too inconsistent. He was the number 1 pick overall. He should not be still struggling like this.
Yeah, the thing that when I, and not in this past game in particular, but earlier in the year, the thing that I saw with Goff was that when McVay would start moving, like kind of shaking things up and going into like no huddle mode and picking up the tempo, it seemed like Goff did a lot better. It's almost like you can't give him too much time to think. Just get him out there and have him make it happen, because he's got the talent. And just 2 years ago, he had a sweet season under McVay. So there's some magic there. It's just that something's getting in the way.
Yeah. And something's getting away, and it's frustrating. I hear Rams fans all the time about it. It's just like it's super frustrating. Like, what the hell are they doing? Why is he still struggling like this?
Yeah, well, maybe he's he's their version of Stafford to us. A guy that's
Yeah,
probably too good to get rid of, but not good enough to get it done.
exactly. I have 14. I have Arizona. I dropped them down 2 spots. The thing with Arizona it was this past week. That was the San Francisco game. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. 20-12.
Kingsbury is not a head coach. Their record at 8-7 is despite Kingsbury being their head coach. To lose like they did to San Francisco it's a disgrace. With
Don't hold back.
All that talent they have, and to basically have Shanahan and Saleh, who are good coaches, coach circles around you, and it's happened in other games this year. Look at the Lions game with Arizona.
Yeah.
They lost to the Lions. How the hell do you lose to the Lions? And we just talked about it. Pee Wee football teams could beat the Lions.
Yeah, if you want to be a playoff team, those are games you got to win.
Yeah, and to think that Arizona, it's a win and get in for Arizona. This week, with Chicago, who I have at 15, who got the 2-spot bump, Chicago can either win and make the playoffs, or if they lose, they need Arizona to lose.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't understand Arizona and how this team, with all the talent they have, is not a 9-win team. I had them at an 8-8 team at the beginning of the season because I thought their division was too tough. But I mean, they went out, and I got really high on them when they went out and beat Seattle, and I'm kicking myself for that. I should have seen that problem was more the lack of cohesiveness in Seattle than it was Arizona doing it.
Well, if we go back to our preseason, predictions or projections, whatever you want to call it, I remember I was trying to pump the brakes on Arizona a little bit.
Yeah.
And, as soon as the season started, they came out so hot, it was hard to not get on that bandwagon. And so it feels like they've been a disappointment in the second half of the year here. But, the reality is that it's still a young team, Maybe next year's their year where they load up a little bit more on defense. I mean, like, their defensive line in particular has been, like, decimated all year. I think if they get one more year of building some depth, they could be a serious team. But yeah, I think we're kind of seeing that. Yeah, maybe we got ahead of ourselves with the way they started out hot.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also like at the beginning of the year, I said I have them 8-8, but I could easily see them going 12-4.
Yep.
With they have so much talent there. I thought that it was going to be other reasons. I didn't realize that the problem with this team was the head coach.
You don't like a lot of coaches this year, James.
No, I don't. It's my 15 number 15 team, Chicago. I don't like their head coach either.
No.
I think if they make the playoffs, and this is what's fucked up, if Chicago makes the playoffs, I think they run it back next year with Trubisky and Nagy, which is ridiculous.
I think that you're right. I think it's a high probability that combo will be back. And it's one of these things. It's like, what's the phrase? Sometimes it's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't, or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
however that phrase goes. But it's like, I think it's almost like they're afraid to see what else is out there, because it's like, well, geez, maybe these guys are good enough to do it. But it's like, yeah, there's been so much disappointment, you just got to pull the fucking trigger and move on. At some point you got to do it. And I get it. It's not like Nagy's been there for fucking 5 years or whatever, but he's been there long enough, and Trubisky's been there long enough. And so I don't know. It seems like they're getting desperate, and so they're doing just enough to kind of hang in there. But is that really what you want? Is guys that are playing good when they're desperate? Because when they weren't desperate, they weren't playing good.
Yeah. But the thing with Chicago, like in the last like 2-3 weeks, they've changed the offense, and I don't know why they didn't do this earlier, because Trubisky has actually looked really good the last couple weeks.
I know, but I'm trying to temper my expectations because it's been against a bunch of shitty defenses.
True, that is very true. But you got also though, Trubisky hasn't lost a game yet this year.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that they benched him before he lost.
Yeah, and he's won every game he's started this year. Not every game he's completed this year. Sorry.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, kicking it back my way?
Yeah, kicking it back your way.
All right, so at 11, I got Miami. I bumped them up one spot. Hey, I don't like that Tua got benched again, but, a win is a win, so I gave him a little bit of love here. Sometimes I just got to remind myself with this team, it's almost like we were just talking about with Arizona, where, going into the season, my expectations were like on the floor for Miami. I thought there was way too much change on this team. They had just been gutted, so much going on. I wasn't expecting them to have a shot in hell of getting in the playoffs. And then it seems like all of a sudden they've been doing so well that it's like, my expectation now is skewed, where it's like you're saying, hey, they just barely beat the Raiders. And I'm kind of thinking, man, I thought they were better than this. But it's like, just a couple months ago, I'm like, fuck, I thought they were going to win like 3 games. So, got to keep it in perspective. They're still having a great year. And hey, they can still get in. So let's see what happens. At 12, I've got Cleveland. I dropped them down 3 spots. Hey, I think we covered it. That game was a big time bummer for them. I think it helps that they're going to be playing Pittsburgh, with Pittsburgh planning on benching so many guys. But it's also, man, that's kind of just like a shitty way of making the playoffs. It's like you kind of had it gifted to you by your division rival, because like they needed to take a break. And it's not like you were so dominant you got in. It's like you were like squarely in the picture, and then when the game started to count, you kind of faded away a little bit. I don't know. Hopefully they get in and they can maybe get a win in that first week and kind of redeem themselves. But yeah, it's kind of crazy what's been going on in Cleveland. Yeah. At 13, I got Chicago. Between these guys and the next couple teams I have on my board, it's they're like all in this like kind of bubble range, and they're almost like interchangeable. But I put Chicago above these next 2 teams just because I think they have the edge in terms of controlling their playoff destiny a little bit more at this point. And even though they have beat up on some weaker teams, they've had some momentum. But it's not a gimme, because they're going to be playing Green Bay. And Green Bay, they want to hang on to that first round bye, and so we'll see what happens this week. But at 14, I got Arizona. I kept them where they were at from the week before. It looks like Kyler Murray's going to play, and so that's really the only reason I didn't drop him on my board. They're closing out here against the Rams, and so they got to win this one, man. But yeah, it was a bummer that they lost to San Fran. How much of that is coaching versus, like I kind of looked at that game and I thought, hey, this is, Saleh is saying, hey, I deserve to be a head coach. I'm going to get like a statement, like clamp down defensive performance at the end of the year just to make sure people know I'm still sitting here. And I thought that was, some of that was at play. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Kingsbury, he's a big money head coach, man. He should be able to find ways to adjust and get shit done, especially when you're going up against a fucking hobbled team. And then at 15, I got the Rams. I dropped them down 2 spots. And so, I mean, I think I put them behind the Cardinals because I know Goff has had this up and down season. Uh, I just think it's going to be tough for them to get a win with a backup quarterback. Kyler Murray is ultra competitive. He knows he's got to get it done if they want to get in the playoffs. We've seen it this year where these backup quarterbacks have come out of nowhere and gotten wins because they catch teams off guard. And so that could happen, absolutely. And that's why I got these teams like kind of all intertwined here in this range, that any one of them could be the one that pops out here. But that's just the way I liked them on my board. All right, back to you, man. 16 through 20.
All right, so 16, 17, and 18 for me is really 16.
Okay.
Like all three teams of all three of these teams are tied. I don't know which one's better. It's a week to week thing. It's Washington, the Giants, and Dallas.
Yeah, it's who wants to make the playoffs.
Who wants to make the playoffs? Washington wins, they're in. If Washington loses, then the winner of the Dallas Giants game is in. And it's like all three of these teams are playing inconsistent. They're inconsistently. Washington is a different team with Alex Smith versus without Alex Smith.
Oh yeah.
So if it was for sure Alex Smith was healthy, I would say Washington is clearly the better team. But I don't know which one of these teams is better. They out. If you look at the whole body of work, they've had basically the same season. And so Washington dropped down 2 spots, Giants dropped down 1 spot, and Dallas jumped up 3 spots.
Okay.
19, I have San Francisco. They jumped up 3 spots for me. Look, they beat Arizona. I put it more on coaching, but this team is a gritty team.
Oh yeah.
You mark them off for dead, and they do unexpected things, and I think they're really just trying to spoil the season for their division rivals. At 20, I have San Francisco will also went up 3 spots after beating Arizona, and then at 20 I have the Raiders. They dropped down 2 spots. I don't know what to say about the Raiders, honestly. I'll pose the question: is the 10-year, $100 million contract to Gruden the worst contract ever given to a head coach?
I think, yeah, I mean, it was aggressive. It was aggressive, especially because he'd been out of the game for so long when they brought him in.
Exactly.
And,
has the game gone by Gruden?
Here's the thing. I like what him and Mayock are doing as a team. I think they've missed on a couple draft picks, but I think they're getting there. And I would give these guys one more year. I wouldn't pull the plug now and just eat that money or whatever. But I hear what you're saying, that when you've seen teams turn around so much faster and you paid all that money and that big commitment to him, you would have expected some more results by now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really down on the Raiders. I was somewhat high on them coming into this year. By somewhat high, I thought it was a playoff. They were a playoff team. They're only really a game to 2 games behind where I thought they would be. But it's every time I watch this team, watch them play, it's a disappointment. Look at the Atlanta game. They didn't show up in that game. Look at the Miami game. I mean they needed a miracle to beat the Jets.
Yeah. I think that for the Raiders, it's one of these things where you've got to decide, and you've got to decide fast. What are you going to do with Derek Carr? Because if you're looking at making a change at quarterback, that changes your whole offseason.
Yeah.
But if you think that he's good enough at least for one more year, this offseason has to be all defense. Because they've got plenty on offense. And I know that their offensive line has had guys out for a large part of the year. And some of that's kind of hurt them a little bit. But you have all the talent you need on offense. Just let them stick around, hang on to those guys, and then go all defense. And I thought they did a pretty good job going out and getting guys on the defensive side of the ball this last year. They just haven't gelled. And so you got to go and you got to upgrade and you got to get better guys. And, if the defense can take just one step up, I think they're a playoff team. But, they got to do it. And I think if they don't do it next year, then yeah, you gotta say fuck it, time to blow it up.
Exactly.
Okay, kicking it back my way, 16 through 20. So I've got Washington at 16. Basically, I'm just going to assume that Alex Smith is going to play this weekend against Philly. I know it's not a guarantee, but I think if he does, that's just enough for them to get the win against Philly and get into the playoffs. And so I put them ahead of this other group of teams. I like how you grouped them all like that. I have mine more scattered out on this next round here, but I think Washington's going to be the ones to get in. And if they're not, hey, whatever. But I agree, they are definitely a different team with Alex Smith. And I've heard some stuff today that Alex Smith might retire at the end of this year, and so. It'd be a bummer if he did, but I would totally understand it with the injuries he's had. Why press your luck? I just think that, man, you saw the potential with him on this team. If he's healthy, I think they're a playoff team if he's healthy for the whole year. But, he's still got a lot of life left in him, and, you got to have a good quality of life too. So, we'll see how that shakes out. It's 17. I got the Chargers. I bumped them up 4 spots. These guys, they're finishing the year strong, and that's really the basis for my bump. I think KC, they've got the bye, and, they're resting guys, Mahomes and whatever else. That could potentially have the Chargers in a position to win 5 out of their final 7 games. And so, even if this last game is sort of a gimme, they're finishing solid. And you've talked about it. They just need to get the right coach now. I do wonder, kind of like what you're saying with Chicago, with them having this late season progression, is that enough to hang on to Anthony Lynn? Can they make the case for that?
Well, the other thing too is from what I hear about the front office, I hear the front office loves Anthony Lynn.
Yeah. I know he's really well respected, man. He's a great speaker. A lot of the players just think he's like a great, genuine leader, but the results have to match that. And I think because he had a rookie quarterback this year, they're going to give him another year, especially because the back half of the year, you started to see some of those results come in. But I think you've been calling for his head all year, and I'm not opposed to them making a change. I just, I do hear a lot of good about him too. So.
Not all year. There was a certain point this year when I noticed how unprepared this team was for situational football.
Okay.
And that falls squarely on the head coach.
Gotcha.
Like running out of bounds and to stop the clock when you're leading instead of falling down in bounds, and consistently. And it was consistently happening where I was finally like, a lot of the problems with this team and the losing of the leads is on coaching and poor clock management.
I got you. Well, so based off of that, he probably still needs to get his ass out of there. Okay, moving on here. 18, I got the Raiders. I dropped them down 1 spot. I still think that they've had an okay year. I think they've had a tough schedule. Their defense has been their Achilles heel, and we just kind of talked about it. They got to go all defense this year, and I think that can help get them to this next level next year. At 19, I've got Dallas, and this is probably the biggest bump I've made all year. I moved them up 9 spots, and this was really, kind of like a combo deal here. One is that obviously they're still in the playoff hunt if they get a win this weekend, but also I don't think I've been given enough credit. They've won 3 straight games. And so I've not bumped them up enough in reflection of those 3 wins. And then when I look at some of the teams around them, they beat San Francisco and they beat Minnesota. So I thought, okay, well, hey, I better at least get them above those 2 teams because those guys don't even have a shot at the playoffs at this point. So, that was kind of my logic for that. And then at 20, I've got San Fran. I moved them up 5 spots. And, this was one of these ones where it's kind of like this whole just bullwhip effect at this point. But all year I'd kind of been hanging on to hope with Shanahan and this team. And then last week was kind of like the week where I was like, fuck it, I'm throwing in the towel. I dropped them big on my board. And then what do you know? They go out and they beat Arizona. Great combination of coaches with Saleh and Shanahan. I like what they're doing. With all these injuries, it has been impressive. And so I bumped them up 5 spots just to give them a little bit of love again here as we close out the season. James, back to you, 21 through 25, man.
21, I have Minnesota. I dropped them down 2 spots. Their defense didn't show up against New Orleans. That's so frustrating because if their defense would even showed up a little bit and Kamara wouldn't have had like 700 touchdowns in the game, not literally 700, but close enough to 700. Yeah. I mean that. You look at some of the touchdowns, their defense was like half-assed tackling, and that's again coaching. I'm not calling for what's his face Zimmer's head and say he should be fired because I think he's a solid coach. I think they've kind of given up on the season up there, and that's a problem. Yeah. 22, I have Houston. I dropped them down 2 spots. The thing with Houston is I think Houston is the most attractive current team with a current head coaching opening.
Because of Deshaun Watson.
With Deshaun Watson. I think the team gave up earlier in the year, and that's evidenced by Watt's comments a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
He lit the shit. It's disappointing because you go out there and you have the fans, whatever he said. I loved his comments. I love Watt as a player anyways, so he's like my biggest man crush football player. Right.
Well that answers a question I was just about to throw at you, is that, let's say you're the Lions and you bring in Saleh to be your head coach, and let's just say you move Stafford and you can get some picks and you can make some of these moves to kind of churn the roster the way you want. You got some cap space. Would you go after a guy like Watt? Because I think Houston's ready to get him out of there. I think he's ready to get out of there. He's fucking sick of it. It's a shitload of money, but there's your shiny new piece for your new defensive-minded coach if you go that direction.
Well, see, and the other thing is with Watt, I think he's on the getting to the back end of his career, but he has health issues, but he's starting have various years where he's had huge health concerns. But I think his knowledge of the game and his ability, whatever team he's on, instantly improves that team just to share that knowledge with the rest of the defense.
Yeah,
he's like a Fitz. He'll keep signing him to contracts until he's 50 because he's like a second head coach.
Yeah, he's going to give you a
second
boost.
Defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
At 23, I have New England. This is a weird one to me because they got beat down by Buffalo, yet they moved up a spot.
Yeah.
I couldn't put them behind the Chargers. I couldn't put them behind Cincinnati. I couldn't put them behind Denver. This is just where they fell with the teams around them. 24, that's the Chargers. They moved up 1 spot. I've said all year, or most of the year, Anthony Lynn is not teaching this team situational football. Herbert is the real deal.
Yeah.
He's a solid coach. Next, the question I'm going to ask you is, with Anthony Lynn, do you see this team making the playoffs next year?
I think they could, James, and I'll tell you why. Obviously Herbert is on the right track. And so unless there's some sort of messed up regression, which none of us would expect, they were without Eckler for a huge part of the year. I think him coming back healthy next year helps them big time. I think They were without two of their offensive linemen. Bulaga was one of them. Trey Turner was another for a lot of the year. And that's a story with the Chargers a lot, like year in and year out, is injuries. And on defense, Bosa's been banged up a lot. They've been without Derwin James the whole season. I think that if in the off season, if they find a way to get a little more depth on the offensive line and then go and work on the defense, I think, they could be a potential playoff team next year.
If the answer is not a clear yes with the talent they have on this team, you need to replace the head coach.
Okay.
And that's where I was going with it. I think they could too, but it's not a clear yes to me. It's maybe.
You think? Yeah, I get what you're saying. So I'm saying if as long as they keep building and moving in the right direction. But yeah, you could make that argument with any team. Well, hey, as long as they're improving, you're saying that you believe they have enough talent now to make the playoffs now if they have the right coach. And I think that they could if they were healthy. But, if you account for injuries, I think you probably need a better head coach to make up the difference.
Yeah. And that's where I was going. And that's why I think they need to replace Anthony Lynn.
I got you.
25, I have Cincinnati. That's another coach I think needs to be fired. But
get his ass out of there, man. Yeah.
Yeah. He possibly could ruin Joe Burrow's career. With what he did with knowing the offensive line was a sieve and dropping Burrow back more than any other quarterback in the league. Yeah. It was a recipe to get Burrow hurt. And that's what happened. And I think if he continues to coach Burrow in Cincinnati, I think more of it will happen, and he doesn't know how to properly manage his team with his talent there. I think he's a good coordinator, but I don't think he's a good head coach.
I got you. I think, get him out of there, man. They need a real coach. And he's not been good at all. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. Had he not won these couple of games, he was like flirting with going down as like the worst coach in history, man. And I know it's only a couple of years, but that's all it takes. You got to get some wins.
Exactly.
Okay, kicking it over my way, 21 through 25. I've got the Vikings at 21. I dropped them down 4 spots. I mean, hey, we covered it pretty well. That loss to the Saints, it was embarrassing. We're talking a lot of defense here, like teams needing to work on the defense in the offseason. And that's exactly what Minnesota needs to do. Unless they decide to get rid of Cousins, which, there's been a lot of talk about him and Zimmer, not being on the same page and whatever else. I think it's one of these deals where all these quarterbacks, Cousins, Wentz, Stafford, just name them. It's easier said than done to trade these guys because you're going to have dead cap hits, and especially if next year's a tighter cap because of the COVID deal, it's going to make it very hard to get rid of these guys. And so, but when you look at Minnesota's offense has not been the problem. I mean, I get it. Earlier in the year, the offense had a couple rough games. But for the vast majority of the year, the offense has been moving the ball. They've been scoring points, and the defense just hasn't done jack shit. Minnesota has to go all defense in this offseason if they want to get back to the playoffs. At 22, I've got the Patriots. I dropped them down 3 spots. Hey, it's been a long time since Buffalo got the sweep over them. It was good for them. These guys, they got a lot of work to do on both sides of the ball, to be honest. But I never put anything past Belichick. The big thing for him is going to be finding a quarterback in the offseason. Cam Newton is not the answer. At 23, I got Atlanta. I dropped them down 3 spots. I think they played really good against Kansas City, and I didn't want to drop them, but you got to get these wins. You can't just play tight games. You got to get wins. And I get it. With Raheem Morris, they've at least been winning games. I'd have to go back and see what his record is since he took over, like 4-5 I don't know, whatever. But I still like what they're doing there with him, and I hope they hang on to him as the head coach full time. 24, I got the Giants. I dropped them down one spot. I didn't want to dig them too hard for losing to Baltimore, who all of a sudden has their mojo back here. But, the Giants are still struggling in what is the worst division in football. And, so I don't know. I couldn't put them higher than this. I think when I look at this division, I think Washington with Alex Smith is the clear top team. I think Dallas is the next in that bunch with the way that they've kind of been trading these punches in recent weeks. The offense has been good, the defense has been good, and they're doing enough on one or the other side of the ball to get it done. The Giants, I know you've been high on them, and I don't know. I'm gonna have to give them a deeper look in the offseason. And then
Interesting thing about the Giants and Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones is currently has the longest streak of most consecutive passes without an interception in the NFL.
So he's tightened it down big time from
Yeah.
how he started the year.
Yeah, it's like 167 consecutive passes without an interception or something like that.
That's good to know. And that's probably why they've been able to win some games, in recent weeks, not so much this past week, but,
Yeah.
it's kept them in the hunt here. All right, at 25, I got Philly. I dropped them down 3 spots, and man, with the way Hurts was playing, I really thought they were going to beat Dallas. That loss stings, and honestly, with Philly's defensive line is great. They're like 2 or 3 in the NFL in sacks, and so I thought that them against the weak Dallas offensive line, I don't know. I thought that was going to be a solid win for Philly. They didn't get it done, so I dinged them in my rankings. 26 through 30.
All right, at 26, I have Denver. I dropped them down 3 spots. I was really high on Denver coming into the year, and I'm just disappointed. I mean, this last week was pathetic, like every other week's been to them. I mean, they lost to the Chargers, so I obviously had to put them behind the Chargers, and I don't know what I think that's the best spot to go out and trade for Stafford and somehow work it with the dead cap that the Lions are gonna have for it, but I just don't have faith that the Lions will trade Stafford.
Here's the thing: is if you're the Lions and you're going to do it, you have to get some really good picks in return, because basically you're saying your cap is going to be fucked up this year, and that's assuming you get it done right away, so that you can bury some of that cap space in 21. I mean, I don't know what you got to get. You for sure got to get at least a first-round pick if you're going to deal with that kind of cap damage. And I'm sure it's going to have to be multiple picks. But, how bad does Denver want him? That's what it'll come down to. And then what does our regime want to do, the new regime? I mean, I would like to believe the new regime is going to say, hey, let's fucking take a shit year. We're going to have a tightened cap anyhow. Let's just fucking call it a fucking wash. Let's basically start parsing off anybody we can for picks. And then fucking the rebuild starts after this year.
Yeah, really. But I don't have faith that the Lions are going to bring in the right regime to be able to do it.
They failed time and time again. I know.
Exactly. 27, I have Carolina. I really like Matt Rule as a head coach in the NFL. I really like what I'm seeing out of Carolina. You got really high on them and then kind of killed them because they weren't winning.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're going to be inconsistent. Their defense is young, and
they've been without McCaffrey like all year.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just like what I see in Carolina, and Carolina's going in the right direction. Plus, they beat Washington. I mean, yeah, it's a sub 500 team, but it is a current division leader that they beat.
Yeah.
28, I have Philly. I dropped them down 1 spot. I never would have thought that if at the beginning of the season, if you told me 3 of the 4 teams in the NFC East were still alive for the playoffs going into Week 17, I would have guessed it would have been Philly, Dallas, and the Giants.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't think Philly would have been the only team eliminated. And I'm just disappointed in the team. I think we've talked about it time and again. You have to get rid of Wentz. There's just something wrong with him. And drafting Hurts killed his confidence.
Yeah.
And you have to get rid of Peterson. Peterson has a lot of good things he's done for the organization. He'll always be remembered in the organization for winning the Super Bowl. But if after the Giants game a number of weeks ago, if they would have gone over to Hurts, this team would be a clear front runner for the division, and they're not.
Yeah. Well, here, let's just, I know we're taking a long time here, but you've got my juices flowing here, and I just want to play quarterback matchmaker real quick. Wentz, the obvious landing spot is Indy. You hook him back up with Frank Reich, and, he gets his career back on track. Stafford, it's to Denver, just based off of the rumors that you're hearing, okay? Cousins, I think, I would love to see Cousins go to San Fran and reunite with Shanahan. Send fucking Jimmy G back to the Patriots, man. Mm-hmm. I think right there, you just had a huge quarterback carousel where a lot of teams switched it up and a lot of teams fucking won. The Lions get some picks. Denver gets their quarterback. Cousins goes to a coach that can actually fucking respect him and talk nice about him. Belichick gets a quarterback again. I mean, it's like,
Belichick gets the quarterback that he never wanted to trade in the first place.
Yeah. Let's make it work, guys. Let's just fucking start signing the paperwork.
Exactly. I thought after Brady left, I thought the quarterback this year for the Patriots was going to be Jimmy G. I thought Belichick was going to go to Shanahan and said, I traded him to you for a couple of years. You got to the Super Bowl. Time to give him back to me, son.
Yeah, it could be happening. This could be the time.
Yeah. 29, I have Atlanta. I heard today that Atlanta finally is interviewing Morris for the head coaching job. Yeah. I like what I see out of Atlanta, and they lost, but I mean they lost to Kansas City. Who's not going to lose to Kansas City this year? Mm-hmm. And they kept it tight. If it weren't for a fluke missed field goal, they would have gone to overtime, possibly won the game. But so basically, the kicker, Matt Bryant was thinking, I'm going to miss this because it's better for our draft pick and make the team better.
Oh no, this was Younghoe Koo.
Oh, it was Younghoe Koo. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, so, I mean I like to call him Young Ho because that's just how it's spelled. But
I forgot it's Koo. I'm a little hungover today, so
it's because Bryant was there forever, man. The dude never wanted to retire.
Exactly. So I'm a little hungover. My brain's not flowing as quickly as it.
This is a team effort, James. If you slip, I'll grab you. If I do it, I hope you do the same for me, man.
And then at 30, I have the fucking Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Dropped 2 spots. Back to you at 26 through 30.
Thank you, James. At 26, I've got Denver. We've actually got 3 out of our 5 teams in this spot, in this range, in the exact same spot. So I got Denver at 26. I don't really need to talk too much about them. I think we covered them pretty well. Carolina at 27, I bumped them up 2 spots. Same thing. I think they probably would have lost if Alex Smith was in that game, but whatever. I mean, that's not here nor there. You can't woulda, coulda, shoulda. 28, Cincinnati, I bumped them up 2 spots. I'm shocked that they beat Houston, but you were all over these guys a few weeks ago, and, I should have paid a little bit more attention. Even without Burrow, they found a way to get a couple wins. I still think Zach Taylor's got to go, though. 29, I've got Houston. I dropped these guys down 5 spots. And for me, it was time to blow it up. They need to blow the team up. They need to trade Watt like we're talking about. They just, fuck, man. I mean, they fired Bill O'Brien so long ago now. It's like the season has to end so that they can start fucking moving on. And then at 30, I've got the Lions. I got them down 3 spots. Hey, man, they're a laughing stock. It is what it is. Whether COVID is involved or not, like with our coaches being out, whatever, we still would have fucking got our shit pushed in that game. And so, whatever, like there's no excuses. We suck, and hopefully we'll get some competent people to run the team next year, and we'll suck a little bit less. But we're still probably going to suck next year. It's 2022 that I'm looking at. Down to the dogs, man.
It's 23 or 24 or 25, 27, 32. I mean, I don't know if they're going to have another good season while I'm still alive.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. You're depressing me. Yeah.
Obviously, 31 and 32 is some combination of Jaguars and the Jets, and I finally did it this week.
Yeah.
I moved the Jets above the Jaguars. Jaguars got beat down by
the Bears. They got spanked,
Bears.
man.
Yeah. They got beat down, and I see a lot of talent on the Jaguars team, but they're not performing consistently. And hey, their record's going to end up at 32, at the worst record in the league. So I just finally put them down at 32.
It makes sense. Okay, so I still kept mine where they were at, with Jacksonville at 31 and then the Jets at 32. I looked at these two teams and I just kind of thought, hey, I get it. Jacksonville, they're locked in for the number 1 pick. I think they have more talent on their football team, and I think that they're closer to actually getting some wins. And so, I gave them the edge over the Jets. And so, I kind of was like, disregard the record. I think they're the better team. They both for sure fucking suck. But the Jets have just been so dysfunctional, man, that, like, to me, that's like something that's hard to repair. And I know that both of these teams are going to have coaching changes and all sorts of craziness in the offseason. I just think that the Jets are in more disarray than the Jags are. Like, if I'm a head coach or a prospective head coach, I'd be looking at Jacksonville over the Jets, man. My opinion. Everybody is different, but
you're in Jacksonville. You have Trevor Lawrence, and that's the big thing there. And I agree with you that Jacksonville is the most attractive potential opening between the two of them. I still think that the Jets.
You think the Jets could beat the Jags? Is what you're saying?
Right now, I think they could.
See, I think the Jags would get them, but flip a coin, man. Flip a coin. They both suck. Okay, moving on, James. Those are the power rankings. Let's talk about our picks. We got to do our little bit of a recap before we actually make our picks for the week. And, going back to week 16, you finished the week with 6 wins. I finished with 10. We're now sitting at 146 to 158, which is good for 61% and 66% on the year, barring some crazy shit happening. Which, if it's going to happen, this is the week to do it because you got so many teams resting guys and all that kind of stuff. But it's looking like I got a pretty commanding lead at this point. And hey, listen, I know, it's tough losing, whether you lose or not, because anything could happen, any given Sunday, all that stuff. But it was still cool. And, just remember, this is all going to a good cause. It's going to be a nice bottle of bourbon. It's not like I'm just taking money out of your pocket. I'm doing something very good with it. I'm getting a sweet bottle of booze, and I'm going to enjoy that bottle of booze. So you can at least appreciate that. So, and hey, listen, we're going to get a redemption bet going for the playoffs. We just got to figure out how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Well, let's go to the picks. Everything's on Sunday this week because it's week 17. And so we kind of talked. It can be crazy with all these teams benching guys and whatnot. The first one I got up here is Jacksonville at Indianapolis. And I mean, you got Jacksonville at the bottom of the barrel, so I'm guessing you're going Indy, but tell me what you think.
I think if James Robinson was playing in this game, it'd be a different story. Robinson's out. It's good. They have the running back of the future. Don't try to hurt him. Don't put him out there to see if he is. I mean, he's proven it already. What do you have to do?
Yeah, don't risk it.
Don't risk it. Thank you. I was just drawing a blank as I was looking at all my notes on this.
See, you need more whiskey. Loosen things up a little bit. You got to shake off that hangover, man.
Yeah, I do. So I got the Colts this week. I think this is one of them that I'm the most solid on.
Yeah.
Of the week is the Colts over the Jags.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going with Indy as well. Indy needs this win in a major way. Jacksonville, on the other hand, has nothing to play for. Why would they risk guys getting hurt? This is maybe just about getting some of their backups in so that they can see if there's maybe something sitting there on the roster that they haven't seen yet this year. I think this is a solid win for Indy. Next up, we got Tennessee at Houston.
So, I'm sorry, I was just counting and I had to flip one more of my picks because a lot of my picks are going against your picks because
that's how you got to do it.
It's far behind.
It's your Hail Mary. I understand, man.
Yeah. So what game did you say that it was?
Tennessee at Houston.
All right. So this one I'm on Houston. I think a lot of what I saw out of Tennessee last week I didn't like. I think that Tennessee's defense at times can be suspect. And I think Deshaun Watson will be able to take advantage of it with the pep talk that Watt's been giving them. I think the team's going to come up fired up and beat the Texans beat the Titans to ruin ruin their chance of winning the division.
Yeah, I mean, I like that logic. I'm sure that they want to be the guys to pull off the upset and knock them out of the playoffs. But I'm going with Tennessee. I think similar to Indy, they really need this win, and so they're going to be focused really hard on getting it done. And it's like, hey, we talked about it all year. There's no home field advantage really, so what's it matter that they're playing on the road? But I agree, it's a divisional game. Houston could get them, man. I know that they would love to be like, fuck you, we got you. But I'm going with Tennessee. Next up, we got Atlanta at Tampa Bay.
All right, so this one, I think that with the COVID issues and the players they have out on defense, I think that Atlanta's going to win this game. A couple weeks ago when they played, it was a close game. Tampa Bay didn't play well. Then this past week they played very well against the Lions, but that was more on the Lions. I think more of what we saw in the Atlanta game 2 weeks ago is really what Tampa Bay is. And I think if Shaq Barrett and the other guys were playing, it might be different, but Atlanta's going to win the game this time.
Okay. I'm going Tampa Bay, and, that COVID stuff aside, I'm looking at it as, Tampa Bay just got some of their swagger back as they just beat the shit out of the Lions. Some of that's going to carry over, and, I'm just saying they've worked out some of the bugs now. They feel good as a team. It's going to continue on. They're going to get the win this week. Next up, we got Washington at Philly.
So, I'm switching this one from what I sent you. I had to switch one more. And the more I was thinking about it, I think Philadelphia is going to come out there fired up to beat Washington and ruin their season again. And that's all of what it boiled down to. Why I chose to switch this one is I think Jalen Hurts is playing playing well. I think they need to not do as many RPOs as they did this past week, and they could and Philadelphia will win the game.
Okay. So I'm going Washington, and this is one where my model called for Philly to win, but Philly has like underperformed my model all year. Even with Jalen Hurts, he's looked solid. They lost last week to Dallas, which I wasn't expecting. And, I'm just banking on Alex Smith being back and Washington being an actual, like, real football team. Plus, their defense has been great this year. So I'm going Washington in this one. Next up, we got Dallas at the New York Giants.
This one was a hard one. Dallas is favored. Dallas has been coming on as of late. I think that oh wow, that's an interesting stat. In the past 30 seasons, the New York Giants are 7-1 outright entering Week 17 when they are still alive in the playoff race.
Oh.
And that even strengthens my position going with the Giants this week.
Well, I like you had a nice stat to back it up. I'm going with Dallas. My model had this one as like a razor thin margin. We know both teams have been up and down this year, mostly down. But I think Andy Dalton's been playing better recently with the Dallas offense. And the Dallas defense, even though they've still been streaky, they've shown some games that they do have potential on that team. And so with their recent wins and momentum, I think Dallas is the better pick for this game, and so that's where I'm going. Next up, we got the Jets at the Patriots.
I've been saying all year, Week 17, the Jets are going to beat the Patriots. I'm sticking with it.
Okay, well, I'm going Pats. We got a lot of action this week. I just can't pick the Jets. So they fucked up the number one overall pick. They're gonna fuck this up too. The Patriots, man. Belichick. Hey, neither of these teams are really playing for anything. But I think Belichick just wants to win, and he'll find a way to get the win. Next up, we got the Chargers at the Chiefs.
So in this game, none of the Chargers. I think Tyreek Hill, Edwards-Helaire, Mahomes, the entire our Chiefs team isn't playing, and the Chargers are favored in the game, which is interesting. Ouch, that's a terrible stat too. Oh, that makes me feel bad. Since 1990, teams that have previously clinched home field advantage throughout the playoffs are 9-23 against the spread in Week 17.
Ooh.
I don't care. I think the Chiefs are still going to win the game. I can't pick the Chargers to win. Like I said, I don't think the Chargers can hold a lead. And Kansas City, even though they're playing their backups are going to come in fired up and beat down the Chargers and cement the firing of Anthony Lynn.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going against you. I'm taking the Chargers in this one. I mean, hey, they are playing against the Chiefs' backups, and so that to me just it's enough to tip the scales in the favor of the Chargers. Next up, we got the Vikings at the Lions.
So, the Lions always disappoint me. When I want them to lose, they win. When I want them to win, they lose.
They're going to win to fuck up the draft pick is what you're thinking.
Yeah, and that's what gives me pause on... I'm going to pick the Lions. I want them to lose. They're probably going to find a way to win this fucking game. And so, yeah, I'm going to flip that too for what I sent you. So I think we have one pick the same this week.
Okay.
Hey, I got to do what I got to do. The Lions always fuck it up. Last year, I wanted them to lose and get a pick over Washington. took over Washington to get Chase Young, and they fucking won. And then they fucked up the draft. They probably wouldn't have drafted Chase Young anyways, and still drafted Okuda like the dumbasses they are. But
Yeah.
still, they always disappoint me and don't do what I want them to do. So I'm going to pick the Lions to win the game, even though I want them to lose.
Okay. I'm going with the Vikings. So I'm expecting Stafford to be out. I think it was already announced that Dalvin Cook will be out for the Vikings. But I don't think that matters as much in this game because, they still have Madison and some good depth at running back. And the Lions they've sucked on defense. And so, I think the Vikings are going to fucking put up some points with ease. And the Lions are going to lose. But, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they fucking screw us over and get a win because that's what the Lions do. They'll fuck that draft pick up if they can because they got to fuck everything up. But I'm going Minnesota. Next up, we got Pittsburgh at Cleveland.
So, even though I just said I'd be hard-pressed to see Pittsburgh winning a game the rest of the year, and I hate this pick with Mason Rudolph. I've talked all year about how Mason Rudolph is the one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the league, but the last time Mason Rudolph played the Browns, he got his helmet slammed over his head, and I'm just going to go with the Steelers. I think from what I'm hearing from the team, what I'm seeing from the Browns are going to find a way to fuck up the playoff picture and fuck up their playoff chances because they're the Browns and they disappoint me every year too.
Okay. Well, I'm going Cleveland. They're just resting too many guys, man. Big Ben's out, T.J. Watt's out, Cam Hayward's out. I think that gives Cleveland the edge. I mean, it is interesting because had Pittsburgh not faltered in 3 of the last 4 weeks, I would think that they were gunning to knock Cleveland out of the playoff picture. But because they're resting guys, I think they're looking for the future. They're not looking for now. And Cleveland is in desperation mode. They're going to be fighting hard, so I'm giving them the win here. Next up, we got Baltimore at Cincinnati.
Here's an interesting question for you. When do you think the last time Cincinnati lost a final home game of the season was?
Oh, that's a weird question. 1992.
Well, not that long ago.
2019.
No, they've won their last 12.
Week 17. Final home games. Not necessarily week 17, but final home games.
Week 17, but the last time they lost in 2006 to Pittsburgh, 23-17.
Okay.
And as we talked earlier, I was basically going against all your picks because that's what I have to do to win.
But you're digging, you're digging deep to find reasons to support it. But you like this one anyhow.
I like this one anyhow, and I think that Cincinnati's going to win the game and fuck up Baltimore's playoff chances.
Yeah, I mean, there are these divisional, aspects where it's like there's more incentive for Cincinnati to get the win just because they can be like, fuck you, Baltimore, But I'm going with the Ravens. They've been rolling lately. Strangely, Cincinnati's kind of been rolling lately too, but on a different level. I've got Baltimore like very high up on my board, and I've got Cincinnati very low on my board. With that playoff spot on the line, I think Baltimore comes to play, and they get the win here. Next up, we got Green Bay at Chicago.
So, with Chicago is a win and get in the playoff situation. Green Bay is a win, get the number 1 seed, or a loss, and a Seattle loss. So, with other things that I think are going to happen around the league, I think the Packers at halftime are going to sit Rodgers. I think they're going to rest their players after the half, and the Bears are going to come out win the game in the second half, and make the playoffs. So therefore, I'm on the Bears.
I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, I just look at it as I got to believe Green Bay's gunning for that home field advantage. And so, plus I think it's a good matchup for them because Green Bay's secondary is like the strength of their defense. And, if they can get Trubisky, basically off kilter a little bit, he could make some bad decisions because he's in desperation mode. And so I'm going Green Bay. I think it plays well into their favor.
Well,
Um,
since week 12, who do you think this? Obviously, since week 12, the leading rusher is Derrick Henry. Who do you think the second leading rusher in the NFL is?
well, you're baiting me. I'm sure it's got to be Montgomery is
It's
where you're
Montgomery.
going at. Yeah. And
And
so I guess
also,
that goes well against Green Bay's defense because yeah, their run game sucks.
and also since week 12, Montgomery has the second most touchdowns
Okay.
on the ground, trailing obviously Kamara because of
Yeah.
it, more or
Six
less
in one
because
game.
Kamara had his six in the one game. So that's just interesting stat to know.
It's cool. You got your ammo. I respect that. All right, next up we got the Saints at the Panthers.
So this one was a late change for me, and before I sent you my picks, I had heard the Kamara news, and I was on the Saints going into this game with Kamara out. I don't see the Saints winning this game. I think Drew Brees has been playing very shaky, and it was really covered up last week against Minnesota. The defense is good, but I think the defense benefits from how well they run the ball on offense,
Yeah.
and the ball control on offense is what's making the defense look so good. So therefore, I'm on Carolina.
Okay. I respect that. I'm going with the Saints though. I think they want to keep Breeze at least warm going into the playoffs, and so I think he at least starts the game, and maybe he comes out early, but I think he does enough to get him a win. We've seen how good their defense can be, and we've seen how underwhelming the Carolina offense can be at times. And so I think that I think New Orleans wins even if they rest some of their guys. That's just how I feel about this game. And I do like what Carolina's doing with Matt Rule. I just think that they're still a year away from getting to that level that they need to be at. Next up, we've got Miami at Buffalo.
So it's this with Miami and Buffalo. The thing I looked at this is I really think Buffalo wants the number no, that wants to get the 2 seed. There's two places where I think even though without fans or without any real amount of fans in the stadium, that there's a big advantage in the NFL. One of them is Buffalo and one of them is Green Bay.
Okay.
And I think the second round game the team having to go to Buffalo and play in that cold, possibly snowy weather versus the Bills is a benefit to the Bills. Since I think Pittsburgh is going to beat Cleveland, if it was reversed, if I thought Cleveland was going to be up big at halftime, I might question whether the Bills win this game. Because I could see at halftime of the Bills game, the Bills pulling their starters and
Yeah.
putting it
Yeah.
to the rest because Pittsburgh was so far behind and it was insurmountable. But I see this game being, I see the Steelers game being a close game, and then McDermott's going to look and say, oh, well, it's a close game, but we got to get that 2 seed. And the only way to ensure the 2 seed is to win. So I'm going to be on Buffalo.
I like your logic, but I'm going Miami. I think Buffalo, they don't have to play their starters. I think they can rest them and keep them safe. I think Miami, they have to play hard. They got a lot more on the line. And so basically, just off of that, I went with Miami in this one. I'm assuming Buffalo is going to bench some guys, but, they may not. Next up, we got Seattle at San Fran.
So San Francisco's hit or miss. this year. They have their good games, they have their bad games. They have a lot of injuries. Think that I think this is a good coaching matchup. I like both coaches. I think both coaches are very intelligent, um, and they have a very solid foundation and how to win games. But with the fact that San Francisco has been playing the spoiler in this division as of late, and they went out and they're playing solidly the last couple games. I think that this ties into my Green Bay benching Rodgers or sitting Rodgers in the second half, because the only way for Green Bay to not get the 1 seed is if Seattle wins. And I think LaFleur is going to look at halftime and see that San Francisco's up so much on Seattle that they're going to sit Rodgers.
They can play it safe.
And that's why Chicago's going to win, and that's why I'm on San Francisco.
Okay. So I'm going Seattle, and everything I've heard so far is that they're going to be playing their starters in this game, and that they know it's a risk, but they want to take that outside chance of getting that first round bye. And so with that being the case, I think they win this game. I think that, talent-wise, they're the better team today just because of all the injuries in San Fran. And I think that, San Fran, I'm sure they want to play, that upset game, but they also have no reason to push guys into the lineup because they're not in the playoff picture. And so they're gonna be making it work with whoever they got. And I never put anything past Shanahan. I just think Seattle, they're going to come out gunning in this one, and I think they'll get it done. Next up, we got Arizona at the Los Angeles Rams.
I may be wrong on this, but I don't think Sean McVay has lost to the Rams or to the Cardinals since he's been head coach of the Rams.
Okay, I'd have to check. I know his record is really good against them. I'm not sure if he's won them all, but he might have.
Yeah, I know he's won the last 7 straight against the Cardinals.
Okay.
I don't know if.
Well, this would be 8.
This would be his
so
8th.
Is this his 4th year? That would be all of them.
That's a good question. Like I don't know how long he's been there. You're probably right. It probably is his 4th year. So, but anyways, I don't see McVay losing to the Cardinals. Yep, this is his 4th year, so he's
sweeping them.
He's sweeping them, and I don't see him losing to the Cardinals even with John Wolford at quarterback. I think a lot of times, Wolford at quarterback will fire up that defense, and that defense will beat the shit out of Kyler Murray.
I like the way you say it. Beat the shit out. You say it with authority.
Yeah. So I'm on the Rams.
All right. So you're going Rams. I'm going Cardinals. Goff is out, as you know. Cooper Kupp is also out. And so, okay. Well, I'm glad you know. I'm just saying. And hey, we talked about it. These backup, unknown commodity quarterbacks, they have had a tendency to catch teams off guard this year. I'm just not seeing it with John Wolford. I think Kyler Murray, he knows they got to win this game. He's been ultra competitive this year. But both teams do have a lot riding on it. And so I could see it going either way. I'm just giving the edge here to Arizona. Next up, we got the Raiders at the Broncos.
In December or January since 2017, the Raiders are 5-14.
Oh, that sucks.
5-14.
Are you saying that that's a weather issue?
No, because they have home games in there too in Oakland or controlled environments.
They would be nice weather. Yeah,
they're playing
I got you.
West. They're playing in nicer weather. Maybe Denver is a little bit worse, but outside of that, I have no faith in this Raiders team. I think the Broncos, I was high on them, coming into the year, and I
Drew
think they
Lock let you down, man.
Drew Lock let me down, but I think they win this game. I can't see the Raiders losing it, or
Okay.
the Raiders
Winning.
winning this
Yeah.
game.
All right, so I'm going with the Raiders. And I think that when I look at this game, the Raiders, they're basically playing to finish 500. I think if they finish 500, they can look back at the year and say, hey, we missed the playoffs, but we are getting better. I think if they're under 500, it's going to be a lot of pressure that they got to win games right out of the gate next year, or Gruden is going to feel the heat to be out of there. On the flip side, with Denver, I think that Drew Lock is basically fighting for his chance to stay as a starter in the league. And so, that's his incentive. And then, I think that there was talk just recently that they're saying they're probably hanging on to Vic Fangio, which I would have thought that that's not necessarily a guarantee. I would have at least thought about maybe you can get a better guy, but I did hear there's an expectation that there's going to be so many openings that if you have a halfway decent coach, this might be the year to hang on to him and give him one more shot. And so maybe there's some of that going on in Denver. I don't know. But I'm going to give the Raiders the edge in this one. I think they really want to get to 500, and hopefully this springboards them into getting into the playoffs next year. But they got to get to 500 for this year to be at least a mediocre season. Okay, those are the picks. Let's move it on here. The last little bit we do is the question of the week. And these last few weeks, I've been trying to give you a heads up on this. For this week, I didn't do that. I apologize. But I will give you some time to think about your answer as I'm kind of laying out some of my answers and whatnot. But with this basically being the last week of the regular season, I thought it would be appropriate just to kind of take a look back at 2020 and ask a question that sort of like spans the entire season. And so this is it is a two-part question. I want to hear the good and the bad. I want to know, what do you think was the biggest surprise in the NFL? And I'm saying it like that, the biggest surprise in the NFL in a good way and in a bad way. And for me, I'll start off on the good side. I think it was all of the rookie quarterback play that we got. We potentially have 4 solid quarterbacks that came out of this last draft class: Burrow, Tua, Herbert, and Hurts. We're going to get some really good football from these guys for years to come. And, I think Tua's probably the only one that showed a little bit of streakiness. The others in this group, they've all been solid this whole year. I mean, Burrow's been out for a while now, but you know what I mean. And I think it's timely, because at any point here we could see guys like Breeze, Brady, Rivers, even Roethlisberger. Fucking shit, man! I heard this week, and this could be a whole separate conversation, but I heard this week there's the fucking potential that Stafford might fucking retire. And so I think
that's fine. That gets rid of the dead cap.
I know, but no, I don't think it gets rid of the dead cap. I would have to look at how that works, because I think the way that they push some of that money around, I think that even if he retired, we would still have something on the books for this year.
We would have something, but it wouldn't be as much, because I believe because how the dead cap is, it's the signing bonus that's spread over the contract. Well, then if he retires, then the signing bonus is owed back to the team.
Yeah, I know there's a way that they can push some of it into future years, though, and so some of anything that got pushed forward would still have to be on the books. But yeah, it would be better. But the problem with that, though, James, is we get nothing in return for him. Like, if we're going to get rid of him, let's get a fucking first round pick out of the guy. That's all I'm saying. But hey, if he retired, he retired. Maybe, I don't know, do you get a compensatory pick when guys retire? Or only when they get picked up in free agency? Yeah, so we really need to trade him. But, let's just say, hey, maybe he just says fuck it and he retires. I don't know. He's made a lot of money. There's nothing wrong if he wanted to do that. But anyhow, my good surprise was the quarterback play, the rookie quarterback play. I think that, it's been phenomenal this year. I mean, four potential long-term solid fucking quarterbacks coming out of one class. That's just, it's a great start. And then flipping it over, looking at the bad side, I mean, I would just say the whole fucking NFC East minus Washington. And, I mean, Washington's obviously not doing great either, but I think that they had some positive this year in that everybody was mostly expecting Washington to be horrible. And, the Alex Smith story, the way Chase Young's played, the defense, Antonio Gibson, they've had so many positives that I think that, they're actually like the lone bright spot in the NFC East. All those other teams, man, Dallas, Philly, the Giants, they all like grossly underperformed this year. And Dallas, despite this like 3-game streak here that they're coming off of, they've been the worst of the bunch because they had Dak for part of the year and they couldn't even win games when they had him fucking torching fucking passing yards all over every fucking game doing all this crazy shit. And so I just, I think, I put the whole division as like, it's one of these piss poor deals, man. If you're sending a team into the playoffs and they're like not even sniffing 500, I don't know, dude. It's a disappointment. It's a letdown. What do you think, man? What's your positive surprise and negative surprise of the year?
Well,
and you've not had a lot of time to think about it, but just shooting from the hip.
So I've been struggling with the negative surprise on it. So I'm gonna talk about my positive surprise. My positive surprise is how coming into this year, I thought there would be no way in hell that the league would figure out a way to get through 17 weeks without shutting down.
Yeah, doing some kind of a pause or something.
Without pausing, without having to add weeks, without really severely modifying the length of the season and when the Super Bowl was. And somehow they did it. They were able to manipulate the schedule to be able to, when you had these outbreaks, have teams have their bye week early and then rearrange the schedule to be able to play the games. And we talked about it many times early on in the season, maybe not on the show, but like offline, we talked about how like the season's fucked, like Tennessee situation, and then that situation, what was it in October when you had like somehow they had to change like 7 game schedules to be able to fit to get the schedule in, and they used the entire week. They didn't just limit it to Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They had games on Wednesday. They had games on Thursday, on Tuesdays. It didn't matter. And it was the first time in NFL history that they played every day of the week at some point in the season. But they were able to manipulate the schedule to get it in the 17 weeks and not severely change the playoffs. We'll see what happens in the playoffs, but there's some flexibility still in the playoffs for the games and they have that week buffer. But I was just surprised that they're making it through the 17 weeks without a major shutdown of the entire league.
Yeah, it's been impressive, and I'm glad. I mean, I think we're all glad we got to watch some good football this year.
Yeah.
I mean, on the negative, hey, you thought the Lions were going to make the playoffs, man.
No,
I'll just throw you that one. You could say that's your biggest disappointment of the year.
No, I'm going to go somewhere else with it. With the negative surprise, if you look at how they were able to make it through the season, at the beginning of the season, the quality of play was pretty poor. And the negative surprise is the fact that now that because they made it through the season without a real off-season program, without preseason games, without OTAs, and the season started out with such poor play, and then it picked up after like 2-3 weeks, but there's a lot of inconsistent play at the beginning, and the Players Association is now pushing to saying, well, see,
Oh yeah.
we've proven that you can do it without the off season stuff. So we don't in the next CBA we want to get rid of all of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, like I think there were already coaches that like spoke out about that, saying that tackling has been like at an all-time worst this year. And
Yeah,
even though the players' union's disputing that, saying that no, they think that it's been pretty fundamentally sound, but coaches are saying nope, we've not seen it. And then I think when you look at teams like the Giants, for example, they started like 0-5 or whatever, and then eventually they started winning games. But it's like, yeah, you had a whole new coach in fucking playbook and everything. If you would have had an off season, you might have been able to get some of that traction earlier in the year. I mean, hypothetically, nobody knows, but
yeah.
it's
And
only going to help.
also, if you had a real off season, would some of these injuries have happened?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, no, I agree with that,
the
man.
first the first few weeks of the season, like we talked about it many times, that there were so many
big
um,
name injuries.
big injuries. Like you had Von Miller go down. You had Joey Bosa. Is that San Francisco?
Uh,
Is it
no,
Nick?
Nick Bosa.
I do that
Yeah.
every time, and I probably will do it forever. You had the all you had look at Dak Prescott. Like
Yep.
I mean that's not necessarily that it's not a soft tissue issue, but I mean you had so many injuries because of the lack of contact in the preseason and the slow build up. You went from
Oh, it was
no real contact
0 to 100. Yeah.
to to all the contact drills, all the contact and all the tackling, and you couldn't really sit them down at the beginning of the season because it meant something. And you
Yeah.
need those. I don't think you need 4 preseason games, but you need a couple of those games just to get that cohesiveness. And we talked about it at the beginning of the year with the coaching that a lot of these teams that have new regimes, new players, the rookie players, the lack of the preseason is gonna hinder those teams. And I think it'd be stupid to get rid of it. And the Players Association is pushing to get rid of it because they were able to make it through a season without it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the right reasoning. It's like, hey, you don't want to do it. I get it, but you really do need to do it because it is going to be a better quality game if you have those practices. You have that time to adjust. You have that time to learn your playbooks and gel with your teammates. It will be a better product. And I think that was the big thing that they were hanging their hats on, is that it's the entertainment factor. Well, I mean, I'm a diehard football fan, man, and yeah, it is entertaining, but I want it to be competitive. I don't want it to be like an arena football thing where you fucking change all the rules so that you can just pass the fucking ball like crazy and do all this shit. And oh hey, we don't need preseason and this and that. And that's another thing, man. Like they talk about this. It's like a lot of these defenses, it took them so long to get into a groove. I mean, give them time together in the off season, and they'll get there faster. I mean, it's the better teams, that cream will rise to the top, man. And so it just, I don't know. I think it's just absurd to say that they want to get rid of it, but everybody's got their own agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, hey, for anybody who's still watching, please share your thoughts. We definitely want you to hit us up for Name That Stadium, but you can also answer the question of the week. If you've got a positive or a negative surprise or both that you want to share, hit us up in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Other than that, I'm all done here, James.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else besides the fucking disappointing Lions that are Yeah.
Yeah, I got you, man. I got you. All right. Well, hey, for whoever's still watching, I hope you guys had a safe and happy New Year. That's it for tonight. James, I will catch up with you later, man.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.